you.
Jock usually gives a little hand signal, or maybe another method of, yes, there we are.
I was ready to answer.
This is the 75th episode of Getting to Know You, and we thought we would do something a little different in recognition of that milestone, as well as to mark the new year. The first episode was shown at the end of June 2020, and all of the episodes except the first one can be seen on YouTube. There has been a lot of evolution since then, but also a lot of stability. Jock McFarland took over the production role from Robin Doherty and Sandy Hyatt, now sitting in the front row, in the fall of 2020, around the 18th program, and GTKY, as we know it, has become more and more sophisticated. You've seen that too. Ingrid Reed has been the interviewer throughout the entire series and continues in that role, except that today we are going to do some role reversal and put Ingrid on the receiving end of some questions with me, Jeff Keener, doing the questioning. Ingrid, I know this is not your first gig as an interviewer. Why don't you begin by telling us about your prior experience in that role?
Let me put it in the context of how we began this. May I do a little bit of history here? Because Jeff has underplayed his role. He's been, quote unquote, the impresario throughout, which means our chief, both cheerleader as well as not critic, but we try out things with him and we value his advice. And it all started with Jeff saying to me, casually, I think just because we knew each other, that with COVID, people really weren't getting to know each other. And I looked back on my notes and I said, that's right. We have an election for the executive committee of the Residents Association. And people don't know who these people are. They voted for them, now they're in, and they really ought to get to know them. Getting to know you, okay. So Jeff said, yeah, that's right, but what can we do about that, right? And so I said, well, could we use that 19-something or the other thing that we have here, and we could do a show, sort of like Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney saying, oh, we can do a show, we have a barn, right? And so then Jeff said to me, well, how would we do that? And I said, well, you just invite people and you ask them some questions and so on. And he said, yeah, but how would you do that? I said, well, you know, I did it for 4 years on Princeton television. Of exactly that kind of a show where we invited people in. The idea was to get to know the people, and then you went into some kind of substantive way, and then at the end you said, oh, that's really great that you're doing that, and we hope other people know about it. And so you said, do you think we could do that here? So I said, I guess so. And that's how it sort of started. So that was really my background, that I had that experience of having to figure out who you wanted to invite, why, and the whole point of it being people to really have a sense of who the person is, who had an opportunity then to explain what he or she did or what kind of event was coming up. And basically, it wasn't hard to adapt here because people here were very willing. And it was the first group of executive committee people who were elected without anybody knowing who they were under the restrictions of the pandemic. And I don't know, I guess it just sort of seemed like a good idea, and we kept doing it. But then we did have a discussion about having it be both residents and staff, which I think was a really good idea as we went forward. So that's where I sort of came in. I have to say also that in my work, I very often had to be on the receiving line of that kind of an interview. And so you learn a lot when you watch how other people do it and what's successful. And when you see how you are successful because the person who is interviewing you has some sense of what they want and leads you through it. So I learned a lot from that I could practice at the Princeton program that I did. with a partner named Michelle Tuck Ponder, who her husband and she have experiences here at Stonebridge, bringing their young son to perform in the Christmas pageants that we used to have, and good friends of John Powell. And our program was called Read and Ponder. Clever.
Too clever by half, Ingrid. How have you selected the topics that have been used for these sessions?
I thought you would ask that question, and I have to say, it's really very organic. It comes out of the community, and as I look back over what we've done, I actually haven't done that, but as I think back over what we did, we usually did it because there was either something going on, a person had achieved something that we thought it would be interesting to find out how they had done it. A lot of it was, should I say, sort of subtle promotion. Of reminding people of what was going on here or who was responsible for something. And then I think with the staff people, we really wanted to make sure we covered all aspects of what goes on here. And I think going back to the pandemic, the thing that was on everyone's mind is how are they getting that stuff in the bags for us? And who's doing it and how do they do it? So I think one of the first staff interviews you did, you remember we went through the kitchen together. I think it was, right, you walked around with us, Sandy, and Robin, because I think we thought people wanted to know, and Ed was very good about explaining it and then talking with us afterwards about how this was a new experience in his long period of having been involved, and so we got that kind of history. And then as people came in, when Mary was new, we gave her sort of like 2 months, and then we asked if we could invite her. So I think it's very organic. It's because of what all of you think up of doing or are doing yourselves, or in some cases we had people who received honors, and we didn't have to try very hard.
There's always something going on,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
I do remember that dining situation. There were literally hundreds of bags lined up out there in the dining room waiting to be filled with individual orders, and it could not have been an easy task for them to have coordinated, and we were very impressed with it and did want to record that and try to convey that to the rest of the residents. I was just overwhelmed.
No, it was really quite amazing. And I think also in some cases people feel maybe honored or respected to have a recognition being given to what they do and how they do it. I thought that was a helpful thing for the community.
Yes, and that's especially true of the staff, which is what you're talking about in that context. They really do, as we all do, appreciate recognition and understanding of what it is that we do.
Right.
Well, there were, I see I mean, looking around the room, I just see I'm reminded of what all the different people spoke about at different times.
Right.
The array of subjects covered has been very vast and wide. And of course, we don't have staff, and then you also have had some outside people
yes,
too.
every once in a while it seems that we have a kind of common experience. I think the first person we did was Barbara Preston, who is the managing editor of Montgomery News, which from my experience is one of the very best, truly local newspapers, and that she knows how to present it, and I relied on her a lot for understanding politics in Somerset County in a very, here's what it is, with really no judgments being made. And also I thought it was pretty gutsy. She was a reporter and a writer for a number of papers, went and worked at the university, and then when the Montgomery News was sold, closed, I don't know what you want to call it, and a publisher was willing to buy it, a person was willing to be the publisher and buy it, he was said, look, but I'm not interested in running it. If you don't want to do it, it's probably not going to happen. And she stepped up, and for her, that was a really courageous act to become the editor. So we were glad to, because that was a shared experience that we had here. I think a lot of people did and do think that newspaper is very good. Then Michelle Tuck Ponder and her husband Reinhold also were in effect from the outside. They're good friends of John Powell, and he was, I don't know if he's here today, but he was also in the Getting to Know You. And we did that for Black History Month because we had talked about how do we get somebody who's making history. And two of them actually were on either sides of the educational dilemma in Princeton, and that is how do all children in Princeton get a good education. And Michelle had just been elected to the Board of Education. She's a lawyer. Her husband, he's a lawyer, took up again a committee in Princeton to have an advocate and a measure of success person for all children in Princeton. So John was happy to be my go-between, even though I knew Michelle, but hadn't really worked with her in a long time. And so we thought that was a good subject for thinking about Black History Month, having friends of Stonebridge come.
So you've really used this as an opportunity to provide residents with a chance to get to know other residents, but also learning about our community in which we live.
Yeah.
Montgomery Township and the broader community, which
Right.
is
A little bit, not a lot. This is basically about us and what interests us or challenges us, and also a lot of appreciation. It is really amazing what there's a chance to give other people a little deeper understanding of people's commitment over time. What does it take to be an active member of the community? And who are these people? What are their backgrounds? How do you have an understanding of what it takes to have our community? So it's getting to know our community through the people who make it really work.
Have you learned things during this time, interviewing these 74 or groups of people or groups of people?
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit hard because we have a little informal conversation in advance, and then I have to sort out what I want to really get in the program and what I've learned and thought, oh, that's really interesting. I'm glad I know that about the person, or how do I make that fit in? It's not really relevant. And so I think that's one of the jobs of the quote producer and interviewer, is to sort out how you focus on what the purpose of the interview is and not get lost and do something else on the side. I have to say, I've seen Rosalie sitting here, and one of our most fun interviews during the pandemic was celebrating your 100th birthday on the screen, together with,
Mickey Hackman, and
Yeah.
who else was there? There was somebody else, wasn't there?
No, I think
Just
that was
those
it,
two?
just the two, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And we had so much fun learning about Mickey and Rosalie that it, I think it was one of the longest programs we did, but I remember never expecting that when we asked them to bring something that we could show that was important in their life, and that we were going to try and do 3 pieces of their life: their early life, their mid-professional career life, and then whatever else they wanted to tell us about being at Stonebridge. And Rosalie, you brought that picture of your sister and you in your dancing costume, and then you went to tell us about having a place to practice or do your teaching, and you walked to the bank and asked the bank manager if you could rent the empty place next door, and he said yes for a nickel a week or something like that. It was one of the best insights into entrepreneurial activity at a young age that clearly had supported you your whole life. So, and then we had champagne. That was the only time we drank on screen. And then,
I had some leftover champagne from one of the events here, and I brought a couple of those sort of bottles, and I must say I was able to take one home, so we didn't overindulge in the event. We also learned that Mickey was a terrible flirt.
Yeah.
Remember, Rosalie? I think you were enjoying that.
And Mickey also then became serious and very passionate about his choice in being a teacher at Brooklyn Tech in industrial mechanics or carpentry. Yeah, and how much he stayed in touch with the students that he had helped, and it was a very poor neighborhood, basically. He was really, really passionate about what he had committed to through his life that really came through in the program.
Where do you see this going in the future, Ingrid? Any changes planned, or is it just going to plow right on ahead?
Well, it's sort of like stop me if you don't like it, and I can find other things to do. But I think something like this, using new technology, the one thing we really have not solved is how do we communicate with everybody and let them know about this opportunity. We had a lot of trouble with 1979. I don't know if anybody even watches it there. But I think that even thinking about this program makes you think about how we communicate and who we communicate to. So I'm not sure, we see all these wonderful people here, if you all even were watching the program. We really don't know. We just go in there and do it and hope that somebody will tune in, except that we have had a lot of help from Doreen with putting together an email group. And I think all of you, if you're getting it that way, need to thank Doreen, because we hadn't figured out how to do it before. But I think some kind of version of this is bound to happen, because it really keeps, it's a way of keeping the group together and informed. And you know, if it goes down to 7 people watching it, then maybe we should say it was a nice run and call it quits. On the other hand, if people want to continue it, I think we have to take a look at how to make it more effective in terms of being a vehicle for communication than we've been able to manage on our own. Jock's been terrific, and we have had the big support of Katie, but I think there's still some, maybe what you call systemic problems that we have to address.
Right, it is part of the bigger picture. I think we do contribute to it. I think the turnout today says it is important, and I also think it's a thank you to you and an appreciation for what you've done in this last couple of years doing these 75 episodes, and we certainly are grateful to you for having done so, and do want you to keep up the good work.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you let me do it.
I wanted to say a little bit just about the fact of although you've been in the room, we've been showing a trailer of some of the numbers, but we've had 162 interviews, 117 individuals that have talked to us, some more than once, and of that, it's been 71 residents and 34 staff, and 13 from the community. But I was thinking about the other late night shows, the other interview shows, and what do they have that we don't have? They have interviews, we have interviews. They have interesting guests, we have interesting guests. They have a studio audience, we don't usually have a studio audience. Now, I'm talking about Johnny Carson, and Jay Leno, and David Letterman, and Conan O'Brien, and Stephen Colbert, and Trevor Noah. And if you look, and you'll see on the finished product, that what they have is a coffee mug. And I decided that we needed a getting to know you coffee mug. How are we doing, Sandy?
This was my job at one time. Now, by no means does it mean she needed 3 more minutes. It was her way of saying, you better keep me on for another 3 minutes. Thank you.
So,
puppets.
And it's the usual logo or what have you, a picture I took some years ago of the fall homes around the Stonebridge sign. And it says, "Getting to know you, Ingrid Reed, host 75th program celebration."
Oh, my.
We are now official, and we have some other people that have helped. I have a mug for Jeff and Sandy and Katie and Brooke, and I'll send one to Robin that I think covers the crowd that are responsible for this.
And you have one for yourself?
I have one for myself.
Okay.
So, you want to land this plane?
Well, since you're sitting next to me, I never ask you, how did you get into all this, I guess call it technology, that you can edit, that you can make it go up someplace, you can put stuff in, and you know what to buy and so on. What's the background for that?
Nothing specific other than, I mean, the fact that, well, we all know, I remember growing up, that I remember the 1949 inauguration of Harry Truman. I was really pleased. I was sick at home. I could listen to the whole thing on the radio, and when I got to school the next day, I found out that all the kids in the class had gone to the rich kid's house and watched it on television. So, but no, I haven't. The software I'm using is the free Microsoft Movie Maker, and I have edited some home videos recently. The old home videos to transfer from 8mm to videotape to silicon digital. So I sort of make it up as we go along.
Well, if that's your story, I'll accept it, but there's a lot more I know that goes into it, and I'm so pleased that you're willing to give your expertise to this endeavor of communication, because we never could have done it without you. And I think Sandy remembers the Robin days when Robin would come with her phone, take a picture of us. We had no microphones, no lighting, and we were trying to make it happen. And then to make it go up to wherever you make it go, Robin had to put it on her daughter's iPad, and she would do some simple editing of it. And then somehow it got on 1979. So you've taken us to a new level, and you are a true partner. I always feel, we always talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And with Jeff's advice, I think that the three of us had a commitment to doing this, and you certainly took us to a new level. We sort of stayed where we were.
I hope you'll see some of the editing in this finished product, particularly when I talked about the late night hosts.
Well, I have to tell you that I think about other hosts and so on, and there are two people who I actually watch to model myself. One is Charlie Rose. Remember him? And he always sat at a round table and would lean in to the person to whom he was talking. And he'd give that person a lot of chance to sort of say what they wanted to say, but you knew that he was watching the clock and was keeping it together. The other person, of course, is Barbara Walters, and she's not with us anymore. But she really had a commitment to knowing why she was talking to a person, which I think is really important in this quote-unquote business. Not that I know a lot about it, but she was very deft at making the other person not always confident, but the person knowing that it was up to them to be the most important person in the show. And that's what I've tried to do. I'm just the vehicle. It's the people who sit on the other side of me, of you on camera, that are the important ones. And you really want to show your appreciation by the way you treat that person. And I never had the opportunity, like Barbara Walters, to really get mad at somebody or tell them they were telling the truth. So, watch out, it may still happen. Okay, I think that's it. It is, I'm looking at Sandy to see it's time. To thank Jeff for being on the journey with us the whole time. And to say that this is a project of the Residents Association. I don't know if they ever voted on it or whatever, but basically that's the way we always saw it.
Yes.